Way to save the season to throw. Fire and down! Incomplete down at the goal line by San Diego! Tomlinson off the left side. Tomlinson sidestep. Hello, history books. They have to here's Sproles. Sproles inside the 10, inside the 5, and the Chargers win the game.
What's up, good people? Welcome. The three of us are back. Three amigos. Jamie, Craig, myself. We are back, and we are here. Thank you in the chat. So today we are doing our draft breakdowns. I know it's a little late, but we are here. Tight end, we've been doing them individually, but we're going to do it as a group this week. I think we plan on doing wide receivers next Friday as well. So look forward to that. I know we'll have a mock draft thing going pretty soon too. All that to be announced. We'll do dates for all that and coming up. But as long as you know, the wide receivers is next week. But right now we're covering tight ends because I know everybody wants to talk about this tight end class. And because it's such a big need for the Chargers, it's a pretty big group that we felt like we needed to focus on as a group. So Jamie's here, Craig's here, and the band is back together. So what we're going to do now is we're going to cover I guess you can call it the consensus top 9-ish tight ends. We're each going to give kind of like a sleeper at the end, and then we'll talk about our rankings and where we have these guys graded. But we're each going to break them down and we'll talk about them. So I think we can just go ahead and get started unless you guys got anything else you want to share. I mean, we're together again. It's been a while. Yeah. Anything before? Go ahead, Craig. Nothing. Okay. I lost them. Were you playing something?
Yeah, it wasn't out loud enough.
No,
man, see, it sucks. It didn't work. I know why. It's because I got my headphones plugged in. Don't worry about it.
Do a bit.
About it. It messed it up. Don't worry about it.
But anyway,
is he gonna do the "We're Back" thing from what was that?
The boys are back in town, man.
Oh, you were gonna
the
play
boys are
song?
back in town.
The boys are back in town.
Yeah, it played, but just clearly not loud enough.
I don't know that we can do that anyway, and it might get the video tagged. So maybe.
Good point. I thought about that. I was wondering if we would get flagged for that. So maybe it's for the best.
Yeah. Well, through your phone, maybe not. But anyway, we're here, and that's all that matters. Okay, so in a particular order, but just in a order, we will start here with Gunnar Helm out of Texas.
All right, guys. So here's the thing. I came away not loathing Helm as much as I initially thought I would, but I'm still not a huge fan. 6'5", 241 pounds, so good size for a tight end. The numbers from last year look pretty good. Also, we're talking nearly 800 yards receiving and 7 TDs. The dude ended up being a bit more of an offensive focal point due to some of the injuries the Longhorns had. They had to circumvent a bunch as far as like wide receivers and running backs went. So dude got more looks in an offense, and I don't think that was originally the plan for him this year. As far as like what he brings to the table, the hands are there. He had only 2 drops on only 70 targets last year. And the best part of his game, is my opinion, comes in the run after the catch department. He does a really good job at making guys miss, and he'll run through arm tackles. So, definitely physical in that way. And he also has like an affinity for hurdling, but I really think he should scale back on that because there were a couple of attempts where it didn't really work out all that well. I think he thinks himself to be more of an athlete than what he actually is. And Texas actually did a really decent job at scheming him open. They put him in a lot of pre-snap motion, got him out in swing routes, flares. And he was also pretty heavily involved in the screen game as well. He lined up inline, split wide. I even saw a couple snaps at X. I wouldn't recommend doing that in the future, but I mean, they tried to make him as versatile as possible, and he didn't look like a complete fish out of water there. So that was the good, and it took a lot because I'm just not really a fan of Gunnar, but gotta give him credit where it's due. As far as like the bad, I don't know that he can consistently win as a receiver without really being schemed into space. And I'm really not convinced that he can like sift through traffic if he aligns in line, that is. It's going to take him a lot to get into his routes because he gets pushed and shoved off track, and it takes him a while to get back on. I wouldn't really say that I want him to play a lot of heavy slot snaps either. He just doesn't really feel like a guy, like I mentioned before, that can do it on his own. And you saw Texas utilize him, like I mentioned before, in a lot of avenues that found him in space all alone. And to be completely honest with you, it wasn't until like later on in the year that defenses really started paying attention to him as a viable threat. But I just think at the next level, he's going to be a little bit limited. And some of that production that you saw from him this year was a little bit inflated because he had to be more of a primary target. But I don't see the ability to be able to create for himself, specifically if we're talking about in one-on-one situations. So if we want to put him in a lot of stacks and bunches, kind of get him running through traffic in that way with different route combinations, complementary routes, that'll help. But just one-on-one, I really don't see it. Again, decent athlete, just not to the degree that they deployed him in as like a horizontal option in the passing game. He had way more targets behind the line of scrimmage than I cared for. And as a blocker, he very rarely delivers the blow. He more so absorbs contact, I would say. And like he'll find himself in really poor placement with his hands, and it'll lead to multiple holding calls. Like it's kind of littered throughout his tape. And it's to the point now where I feel like if they don't fix the technique, he's going to be a liability at the next level. If you're going to ask him even to be like a move blocker, if you're going to block in line, you'll probably be able to get a little bit away with it a little bit more just because you'll be so congested and there's so many bodies. But out in space, when he doesn't get his hands inside chest plates, he gets really, really wide, and the refs are going to catch that all day long in the NFL. There were a handful of like concentration penalties also, like false starts, and you just really can't have that at the next level. So overall, like I said before, I didn't hate him as much as I thought I would, but I'm also not a huge fan, and I gave him a late third round grade, so he got a 71 from me.
Jamie?
Interesting. I agree with a lot of what Craig said. A couple of things that I liked about him, just to throw him out there. He does a great job of looking back for the ball once he uncovers, and he provides a big target. And I love the hands. I think he does a good job of attacking the ball at the high point with really good hands. Negatives, I think Craig touched on most of it. I think the big thing is while he ran a decent route tree at Texas, the outs, the ins, the hitches, the seam routes, the deep overs, he might be limited to being more of an underneath kind of guy, a safety blanket, maybe the occasional intermediate pass at the next level. Like Craig said, he really feasted off of those misdirections, the screens, a lot of that underneath stuff. So not really making big plays down the field. Not every tight end needs to do that, but that's what the Chargers need at this point. So some things that I think you can definitely develop. I was a little bit higher on him, similar range. I had a 76 on Helm, so kind of a mid third round pick.
Okay, then I'm lower than the both of you because I'm not okay with this. I'm not okay. I'm not okay with him entering the draft. No, I'm just kidding. No, I agree with there are good things, and I agree with Jamie. The way that he kind of becomes a big target for his quarterback and goes back for that ball is awesome, and I think his hands are pretty steady. The fact that they were able to line up him everywhere is like a good little like resume builder, but if you can only get open through like misdirections and like stacking and bunching, it's an issue at the college level. And the height is like average, but he's too skinny. He was like 241, I think he ended up measuring at. He was a god awful performer at the combine, which he was supposed to debunk the he's slow narrative, and went out there and just laid an egg. And then his 40 time was terrible. And then he went out and did the shuttle. And then he did the 3 cone, and they both didn't help him out, and he was just awful. I could only imagine what his RAS score is, but
I'm gonna shoot him a little bit of bell there, Garrett. Apparently, he sprained an ankle during his first 40 attempt, and he still decided to run again. That is what the claim was. They showed a picture of his foot. It looked terrible. So, I mean, I guess the guy was trying to be a warrior, but just wanted to throw that in there.
Real tough guy. Okay, cool. Well, just don't run. I just don't run. Don't run. Wait for your pro day. I mean, just let it heal up. But anyway, at most to me, this is a tight end 2 ceiling as kind of a Y. But the biggest issue are, I mean, there's so many, but the blocking has got to improve. I've got a 68 on him. This isn't like, hey, do not draft, but I'm just much lower on Helm than you guys are.
Yeah, I think he's probably a tight end 2. He's a flex tight end in my opinion. You don't want him in line. Maybe a little bit of an H-back blocking out of the backfield. I think he was okay in motion when he was asked to block on the move and climb to the second level. But the inline blocking is not good. So yeah, I don't disagree with you guys. I'm a little higher on him than you. Not somebody that I would be super excited about being the primary receiving option for the Chargers. But there's stuff there to develop if you're looking at getting him, mid to late day 3 or day 2, excuse me.
Yeah. I mean, if we're talking about double dipping at tight end, then, then you're fine. If you're looking at as a kind of rotational, whatever kind of tight end in the draft, I totally understand that. But if you're kicking that can and you're not getting that tight end early, yeah. Also, by the way, this does not feel like a Chargers type player.
No,
like this Harbaugh, Roman, Ortiz type player at all.
I went into scouting him with or reviewing the tape with some preconceived notions about the dude, and to be honest with you, he dispelled a couple of things. I was questioning, as far as like his hands are concerned, his ability to kind of pluck the ball out of the air. I thought he was more of a body catcher, but I did see him use his hands pretty consistently for the most part. It was just, I don't know, man. I think I'm becoming a little bit of a tight end snob just because there's a certain type of game that I like. And when I don't see it, it's hard to watch. And again, I'm also looking in terms of fits for the Chargers. So the second it doesn't work out the way that it should, I have to kind of reset the way that I'm looking at the prospect, looking at them as an overall player, not just specifically for the Chargers. But his game just never did it for me, not from before I watched it. And I'm out here in Longhorn country. I live 20 minutes away from the stadium. So I work with a bunch of UT fans. I've seen a bunch of their games. I've been to a few of them. Helm just doesn't do it for me. Yeah.
And I think that's a good point, Craig, because I do feel like if it's not a good fit for the Chargers and it's not the type of tight end that we normally gravitate towards, you like subconsciously want to ding them and knock their grade down and stuff. But yeah, you do have to kind of separate yourself a little bit. That's for sure. Cause I felt that a lot with a bunch of these guys.
Definitely.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Next up, Jamie, it is your turn. And we are moving on to the Notre Dame tight end, Mitchell Evans.
I don't want
to. Okay. Next up, Thomas. Okay. Sorry.
So Mitchell Evans is 6'5", 260. To me, he's a guy who I think he's an inline tight end at the next level. He played, I think he was a bit more of a flex tight end in college, but I don't really think that's where he's going to fit in the NFL. He has a good frame. He's really physical as a blocker. Evans uses really strong hands and leg drive to move people in the running game. Actually, his blocking was probably the most impressive part of his game. As a blocker, he produced inline from the slot. He has really natural hands, does a good job of catching the ball out away from his frame and using his frame to shield defenders. Long arms gives him a pretty good catch radius. He's not as athletic as some of the other guys, and he's not as quick with his hands, in my opinion, as some of the other guys. So the catch radius isn't what it is with some of the other guys in this class, but it's not terrible. It's just not great. He will provide a big target. He'll work back to the ball. Weaknesses, some things I didn't like about him. I think he's more than likely going to be limited to being a safety valve at the first level. I just don't think he is the route runner or really has the speed or athleticism to create separation and make plays down the field. He looks like he has really tight hips when he's running routes. and with the ball in his hands after the catch. The route tree is very limited. And again, not really sure he has the agility or the flexibility or athleticism to develop into much of a route runner. I don't think he's going to provide much in the way of being a yak threat. Just not very good, or doesn't look particularly comfortable with the ball in his hands after the catch. Kind of looks like he's looking to hit somebody and go down. Evans is a guy who, in my opinion, he's a lumbering athlete in space. He does tend to approach his blocks with a high pad level. And he had 2 separate seasons shortened by injuries. So the medicals are going to be super important for him. To me, Evans is he's a blocking tight end at the next level and a safety valve. Maybe somebody you can scheme up some misdirection plays and some screen plays. But he's going to be running, 5 to 7 yard out routes and hitches, turning around and looking for the ball when the quarterback gets in trouble. I have a 70 on Evans. So midday 2 pick, late 3rd, early 4th round kind of pick. I don't see much in him. It wasn't a very fun watch, in my opinion. I'm sure he'll carve out a nice role at the next level, but he's not a guy who, in my opinion, fits what the Chargers need at the position based on what's already there, unless they're already looking ahead to replacing Will Dissly.
Yeah. Athletically, it feels like he runs out of gas 5 yards from the line of scrimmage. I mean, he offers absolutely nothing vertically. He will be a check down weapon at most, and he will be a tight end 2 or 3 at best. And, I think there are some reliable hands, and I do think, he was pretty consistent, even with the injuries. Putting up back-to-back 400-yard seasons was nice, but this is a get you a 5-yard out. This is a check down option, and he is a tight end 2 or 3. He is a rotational tight end. He's got a 66 for me. This is a day 3 player for me.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, Mitch, hope you don't watch this podcast, buddy. Classic Notre Dame tight end, in my opinion. So he's got like he's a reliable receiving option, solid blocker, but dependable chain mover. He'll probably help keep the offense on schedule, but nothing outstanding about his game whatsoever. He kind of feels like a guy that's built to play in a gap, heavy power scheme, or gap and power scheme. You'll be able to sneak in like some easy red zone touches for him. Also, I just feel like he's built for that. Defenses just won't pay much attention to him, especially if you have him intertwined with a really good running game, a solid and effective one. But you'll be able to probably get some sneaky touchdowns. I wouldn't be shocked at the next level if you see him have like 5 and 6 touchdown seasons just off of maybe like 3-4 yard passes, because teams just won't pay very much attention to him inside of the red zone. So when you cross the 20, he might be able to give you a little bit. I will say, though, one of the things that I did appreciate about him is he's a really good contested catch guy, which makes him that much more viable of an option inside of the 20. So that's all I got for you, Mitch. Everything else is just pretty much blah. The guys covered it. And, it's the typical Notre Dame tight end. Nothing flashy about him whatsoever.
Is that the second shot at Michael Mayer?
Did I say Michael Mayer?
You said, I don't know.
I'm not excluding him. I mean, if the shoe fits, and these dudes wear the same size Jordans, in my opinion. But with that being said, they have a type. Let's put it that way.
All right. What was your grade?
Oh, sorry. So, Mitch, you got a 68 from me, my man. So, early 4th, late 3rd, potentially. So, we're all in the same range.
Yeah, it's a day 3 guy. He's going to have to carve out a role in special teams to like make a roster type of guy.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Yeah, he's going to have to be a good blocking tight end on special teams and chase some people down, make some tackles. That's his path to making a roster, I think.
Yep.
I tried to help you out, Mitch, man, but it was rough.
Hey, nothing wrong with it, man. However you make the 53, that's okay. As long as
just not this 53.
Yeah.
Thank
just
please no.
Thank you.
Just want to make sure we put that in there. Throw it out there. Any 53, but this one.
I was given some hope to Mitchell, like, hey, there's nothing wrong with chasing down a man on special teams and having a block. That's okay. But yes, just not here. Not with the Chargers. All right. Our next tight end is Thomas Fidone. He's got good height, good length, pretty good hand size. Not much of a deep threat, but does most of his work in that kind of short to intermediate part of the field. Pretty good catch radius, too. A lot of catches outside of his body. Had an impressive combine showing, which is probably going to boost his stock just a little bit. But my favorite part of watching Fidone, especially starting with the other two, not that they were terrible, but I really liked his blocking ability. I thought it was really good on tape. Uses those big mitts to latch on. He took pride in blocking. It felt like, every snap he made it personal, and I appreciated that. He's also pretty good on the move as a blocker in the open field. He does have some injury concerns. He's had multiple knee injuries. It's cost him 2 seasons, but he's going to need to put on a little bit more muscle on that frame. He's another one of these skinnier tight ends. There's a few of them here in this class. Going to add a need to bulk up. But has the athleticism, blocking ability. I think he's worth investing in as a rotational kind of stick mover type tight end. I gave him a 68. He's like a, fringe late day 2, early day 3 guy. I think there's something here where you can get a tight end too. But I think he does also have his shortcomings, and the injuries have cost him a lot and are a little concerning.
What do you got, Craig?
So Fidone is really interesting. I actually got a kick out of watching him because he runs like he's hunchback. It's kind of weird. There are a couple guys in here with some interesting styles and athletic ability and how it looks, but we'll get to all of that. It kind of looks like a kid that's sneakily running away from like egging a house, if whatever. It's just interesting. The running style is interesting, but as far as the actual on-field performance, he's pretty much going to have to be like a detached wire H-back type. He's really athletic. He's got vice grips for mitts. I think he only registered like one drop in over 40 plus targets. The route running is pretty decent. He can make you miss after the catch. The blocking, I see where you were coming from with it, Garrett. I see the effort. It's just like half of the tight ends in this class, they just don't have enough lead in their butts, man. So they get pushed around. The primary concern, I also liked what he did after the catch. He's pretty good in run after the catch. But my primary concern with him is going to be availability because the kid's already had like 2 separate ACL surgeries. And as far as everything else goes, he just kind of like a lot of guys in this draft at this position. They feel like bigger body wide receivers that just like work part-time as inline wide tight ends. He fits that mold a little bit for me, but I see the talent. Again, the question for Fidone is going to be, how do the knees hold up at the next level? He's already had significant trauma to him at this point, and moving forward at the NFL level, it's going to be tougher on him. But I liked his game. Wasn't in love with it. With that said, I ended up grading him out at a 65. So give him a mid 4th round, maybe early 4th round grade. Mm-hmm. So somebody you might be able to sneak in as tight end 2, tight end 3 and develop him. But I don't think he'll ever be anything more than like a flex tight end 2 option.
Yeah.
So I'm a little higher on Fidone than you guys are. Okay. And what did it for me was, watching the 2024 tape, I wasn't that impressed. I mean, you can see the hands, you can see the catch radius. Those are the things that you like. You like the effort. There's never a snap that he takes off. The effort's always there. The motor is always there. But it seemed like everything he was catching was more of like a safety valve kind of an option, maybe with some intermediate upside. But when you go back and you watch 2023, before the offense got changed to better fit Dylan Raiola, he was catching a lot more intermediate and deep passes. He was making a lot of plays up the seam, a lot of deep overs, a lot of seam routes, a lot of posts, and was really good with the ball in his hands after the catch. Now, that was pre-ACL injury number 2. But I still think a lot of his the dip in production, at least in terms of how he was used, was more about how they built the offense around Raiola than it was about Fidone. So I think Fidone is a guy who might slip through the cracks a little bit and might wind up outperforming his draft position because of the athleticism and the hands, and he runs pretty good routes, and you can put him on the field as a blocker and feel like once you bulk him up, he's going to be pretty productive. So I have a 72 on him, so late third, early fourth. But still a guy who I think, especially with the way that Greg Roman is known for scheming around his tight ends and finding ways to get tight ends open, I feel like he's the kind of a guy who could slot into that intermediate and deep role as a tight end out of play action, out of condensed formations, and get him open over the middle of the field. So he's a guy who could fit what they're looking for. They might see more in him than some other teams, just depending on the medicals.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the medicals are his biggest concern.
Yeah.
Because I do think there is something here, but we shall see. All right. Next up, Craig. Harold Fannin Jr.
All right, so the Enigma himself, 6'3", 241 pounds. So you consider what that means as an inline tight end. He's not the biggest guy, but when you go back and look at just the ridiculous production in the MAC, I mean, we're talking about the last 2 years, 160 receptions, over 2,100 yards, 16 TDs. So just the model of production, specifically in the last 2 seasons. He was the offensive threat at Bowling Green, and saying that out loud sounds kind of hilarious because it's Bowling Green. But dude got busy against Power 5 programs. You saw him tear it up against Texas A&M and Penn State. Those were actually like 2 of his standout performances last year. So if you want to pay attention to how he measures up against upper level competition, just go check out those 2 games. Very, very good hands. Only 4 drops on over 150 targets. Wow, 150 targets for a tight end sounds nuts. But I digress. Fannin mostly frames and plucks the ball out of the air the way that you want to see a receiver do it. So pretty reliable there. He was all over the route tree from what I watched. I saw essentially everything from 0 to 8, but I didn't come across many 9s, aka goes. But I think there's a very distinct reason for that, and I'll get to it in a minute. He got work in line. It wasn't the prettiest, but he was also a detached split wide. He worked in the slot, moved around in that offense to great effect. Again, by being the primary weapon and to be able to produce the way that he did says a lot. So you can't take that away from him. The versatility showed up. His claim to fame is going to be his ability after the catch. So he's got the really, really unorthodox, herky-jerky running style. He makes guys miss in the open field, but he also has this very physical demeanor about him as a ball carrier that aids in his inability to break tackles. So I think dude actually played some safety in high school, so he's no stranger to contact, nor does he actually shy away from it. 873 of those, over 1,500 yards he had came after the catch. So the man was clearly looking for action after every single reception. The blocking was better than what I expected before I turned on the tape. Even though the technique wasn't great, the effort was definitely there. But then we have to flip on to the bad because, these aren't all perfect prospects whatsoever. Aside from being what is considered undersized at the position, the dude might have one of the most non-aesthetically pleasing games I've ever seen. It's kind of like Bill Cartwright levels of just, at least to me. His feet barely leave the ground. He sort of looks like he's skating instead of running, but somehow it works. I don't really get it. The 4.7 he put up in Indy, it checks out. It shows up on film. He has this really good initial burst, and he gets into the open field, and guys just seem to be able to walk him down from wherever they are in the field. He isn't going to outrun many folks at the next level, which explains why, as I mentioned earlier, he wasn't really asked to run very many vertical routes on the outside because just wasn't going to work out for him. And also because he has a smaller body type for the position, and he isn't, all that explosive when we're talking about leaping ability and things of that nature. He wasn't going to beat a ton of people, contested catch 50-50 ball situations where he had to leap. He was still I would say he was very strong and strong-handed in catching the ball when contested on the ground. But if anything was in the air, it was going to be really tough sledding for him to come down with the ball. While the blocking was better than I anticipated, it still needs work from a technical standpoint because he isn't the biggest guy. So he found himself getting displaced, even as a move blocker by stronger edge defenders and even safeties in certain instances. He really has to work on widening his base as a blocker so that he doesn't find himself moonwalking at the point of contact so often. But overall, Fannin was, I mean, it was a fun watch when you look at the production. Again, aesthetically, not very pleasing to me, but, you know, I can understand why a lot of people love the game. You can't deny the production. I gave him a late third round grade at a 72 overall.
Jamie?
Another one I'm a little higher on. Fannin, I enjoyed. The running style is a little weird. His legs don't seem to bend at all, which is a little strange. But the things that I liked about him, I thought he had good body control with the ball in the air, tracks the ball and adjusts to the ball in the air like a wide receiver. And he does a good job of sitting down and voids in the zone when he finds them. And I like the hands. And like Craig said, runs a pretty extensive route tree and is a pretty solid route runner for the most part. The blocking, especially as a move blocker, was a problem. He was a bit of a speed bump at times. Guys would just run right through him. There were a lot of reps of him bouncing off of people, trying to hit them. The technique is an issue. The play strength is an issue. He's going to have to bulk up, get a lot stronger. And I thought there were times where if he had to stop his feet, where he would kind of have an issue getting started up again. So some start-stop issues. Overall, I liked him. He's another guy who, like, in my opinion, if you look at the way he was used in college, he was used as a running back. He was used out of the slot. He was used in line. He played out wide at times, and he made plays at all three levels of the field. A lot of big plays. He's another guy who I just feel like with the way Roman schemes up tight ends, I feel like he could be highly productive in this offense. He would slot into that deep middle kind of role, seam stretcher, I think, quite well in this offense. He, in a lot of ways, he kind of reminded me of Isaiah Likely when he came out of college. So, I liked him. I have a 78 on him, so I'm a little bit higher, more of a third round, early to mid third round pick for me. But I think there's something there with the right offensive coordinator.
Yes, and I'm with you, Jamie. And major production, obviously horribly undersized. He is a yak asset from the tight end spot.
Yes.
He is an absolute true pass catching weapon. And I just want to say, because all it was like, how could somebody at this size, it's not going to work. He's not an NFL player. He's too small. Go look at Chigakonkwo. Go look at Isaiah Likely. It's the same type of thing. Another undersized tight end, below level testing, explosive enough on tape as an added weapon you could put with some real nice alignment versatility, might I add. Mm-hmm. There's one man who fell in love with somebody just like that. It was the man who was at the head, the director of player personnel for the Baltimore Ravens in 2022 when he drafted Isaiah Likely, the current GM for the Chargers right now, Joe Ortiz. We're talking about Isaiah Likely being 6'4", 240 coming out of college, and we're talking about Fannin being 6'3", 241. We're talking about spitting images. If you see this man on tape, he's going to remind you of that Coastal Carolina Isaiah Likely type tape. Not the way he runs, mind you, but the production. I get it, he's undersized, but man, you look at it and go, man, we could have our own Okonkwo over here, our own Isaiah Likely over here. There is a lot of potential in this little man, this light man. He's not so little, but he's light. And so you gotta believe that Joe Ortiz looks at this and goes, I made it work before, and man, did I have success with that? I think if I can get my hands on a Harold Fannin in the third round, where I've got him graded too, I'm at a 76, Jamie. In the third round, in the middle of the third round, where we're at, I think I could do wonders with this man. So I think I like this fit, and I would love to have Joe Ortiz to get him in here, have Harbaugh come in here, and just have just blow up this offense with a guy like Harold Fannin Jr. I'm a fan of his, and I would love him in the third round.
Yeah, I mean,
is he one of your guys? Is this he gets the G stamp of approval? Is he officially
well? I mean, we're talking
guy?
about the third round. I would say that people are unfairly pegging him as an undersized tight end, which we now see can work in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
That mold works.
I think with Fannin, you're talking about a guy who, again, what do the Chargers like to do? condensed formations. They like to create traffic as a means for creating space for the guy they want to get the ball to. Roman is an expert at finding ways to get his tight ends free releases deep and intermediate over the middle of the field. And he always, even though he does it all the time, he always seems to catch people sleeping with it. I mean, the options with him coming out of the backfield, being in line, coming out of the slot, being in motion, rub routes, all kinds of ways to get him open. And he creates separation on his own. There are so many ways this guy can make plays. Once you get past the top guys in the class, in my opinion, he is one of the most obvious best fits for the Chargers because of the way Ortiz was taught to evaluate tight ends, because of the way Roman schemes up for his tight ends. It just makes sense.
And I don't want to bury a lead here, but I feel like there's some guys we might like in the first round, and there's some guys we might like in the second round, and then there's Harold Fannin in the third round, and then after that, you're talking about developmental dudes who are going to be down your depth chart as depth. And so for me, if you're going to kick that can, Harold Fannin has got to be your target. If that means trading up a little bit in the third round to go get him, he is just a perfect fit if you're waiting on a tight end in the first 2 rounds, in my opinion.
Well, I'll say this, though. My main concern here in the Chargers offense is his ability to threaten vertically up the seam just because of the height. I think that's where it might form a little bit of an issue for him because he's also not an elite athlete when we're talking about just overall speed. So if he were taller and he ran a 4.7, 4.75 or 4.78, whatever it is that he ended up running, it would concern me a little bit less. So like Isaiah Likely is a little bit taller of a player. And, just not, I didn't see what his arm length was. I don't exactly remember. So I think that's the only thing that I say would potentially knock him as far as what he can contribute to the offense. I have no questions about what he can do after he gets the ball in his hands. It's just how you scheme him open. He can create separation because he's a decent route runner. I just don't think that, again, and this is me in my mind, having a specific type of player that I want for this offense. He just doesn't fit that bill for me, but I'm sure that they can find other ways to make him successful. I just want something vertical in this offense by any means necessary.
Just imagine him getting those screen and misdirection touches that Dissly
instead of Will Dissly.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Well, here's the funny thing. Will Dissly moves like a rock. Fannin moves faster. It still looks weird, but I get where you're going. He'll be more effective. But also, most people weren't expecting Will Dissly to get those screens, even though it happened multiple times. They were still able to sneak it in literally every week. Don't know how that works, but no, I get where you're going.
I'm looking up arm length right now for you, Craig. Because I've got, let's see, did he measure arm length? Okay. Harold Fannin Jr., 32 1/4, and Isaiah Likely is 31. So he's got longer
arms and
an inch shorter.
Likely 6'4".
Yeah.
Okay, so it's the trade-off.
6'3".
Height and arm length. So
a matter of inches.
Mm-hmm. That's what she said.
Yep. The inch matters. So let's move on to Jamie's.
I love y'all, man.
Person, of course. The next person here, as we move off of Harold Fannin, Elijah Arroyo, the Miami tight end.
All right. So
from the U.
Arroyo is 6'5", 250-ish. He is, in my opinion, a move flex tight end. However you want to frame that. Lot to like about him. He's physical and willing as a blocker and does a pretty good job of playing behind his pads. Approaches his blocking reps with a lot of urgency and strain and effort, which I like. I thought he was most effective as a blocker when they put him in motion as a move or a lead blocker, particularly as a play side lead blocker when they brought him across the formation or asked him to climb or trap or wham or kick out. Like I said, no shortage of effort or intensity in his blocking assignments. He's another one. And one of my favorite things about this tight end class as a whole is almost all of these guys are natural hands catchers. And Arroyo is no different. He does a great job of extending and plucking the ball with really strong, soft hands. And he can wait and be late with those hands and still win. Arroyo excels at finding soft spots in zones, particularly in the red zone. He has a second and third gear for Yak after he makes the catch. He really kills defenses in the middle of the field. I think he's a guy who is going to be really effective up the seams. Excuse me, at the NFL level. Does a great job of cutting off and adjusting his routes and working back to the ball to help the QB when they get in trouble. Something I noticed, and we talked about a little bit in our chat offline, is to me he looks slow early in 2024, and he was coming off of a couple of knee injuries. But I thought his speed and explosiveness improved as the season went on, and he looked like a different athlete towards the end of the year. Started making more big plays. Weaknesses for Arroyo. He, like I said, 2 knee injuries cost him parts of 2022 and 2023. So he's another one. The medicals are going to be really important for him. There are times when Arroyo will overrun second level blocking assignments. Something that he does as a blocker, even with the effort and the strain as a blocker, he drops his head and lowers his shoulder when blocking on the edge almost every rep, and it's kind of annoying. Like all these guys, he's going to need to bulk up. He's going to have to get stronger, add bulk and play strength, functional strength, and improve his blocking technique. It got better later in the season, but I thought his routes seemed labored at times in 2024 due to knee tightness and some choppy footwork. And I think the lack of play strength and agility might make it a little difficult for him to beat press coverage. But overall, I liked him. He was productive. He was fun to watch. He's a guy who I don't have too many major worries about as a blocker right out of the gate. And I feel like he's going to step in and be pretty productive as a flex tight end early in his career. I have an 85 on Arroyo, so a mid-second round pick. Just a fun watch, a productive kid, good athlete, does everything well without being necessarily elite at any one thing, but just well-rounded.
Craig, I'm going to let you take this because I know you're a Miami guy.
Come on, man. You know it's all about the you. You know it. So yeah, Arroyo is one of my cane guys. Was a huge fan of him. Just the last few years, it was really tough watching him deal with that knee injury. The ACL tear his sophomore year really set him back for basically 2 years. And add to that, like Tyler Van Dyke going from the next big thing at QB in 2022 to like a Coral Gables outcast a year later. And Arroyo basically had no shot between the two of those things. Really dangerous vertically. I think dude cracked 21 miles per hour on that 70-plus yard TD against Georgia Tech last year, if you want to check that out. And I honestly didn't know he had that in him. I knew he was athletic, but that type of straight line speed I didn't know existed. The buzz about him really kicked up during the Senior Bowl. I was really hoping for him to stay like under wraps, but NFL scouts know this. I mean, they do this for a living. As far as like the general public and fans go, you didn't hear a whole lot about him until those practices, when like even the route running seemed to take a leap. Now, granted, one-on-ones for like skill position players favor the offense during those practices, but what he proved was that the full confidence in that knee was back again. And the dude just turned 22 like a week ago. So there's a ton of runway for continued growth. But Buddy is a complete spark plug when we're talking about tight ends that can threaten the seams. And I also agree with Jamie with the blocking. The effort is there, but you have to see what you hit. And he has a tendency to duck his head and lunge, and it looks really bad. So there's some technique stuff that he has to work on. But just overall as a player, this is a guy I think when we're talking about the type of player that I'm looking for, and I really want someone who can like threaten the seams, make defenses have to consider that between the numbers. Arroyo fits that bill, and I have him at an 82, so I got more of a mid to late second round grade on him.
Same exact score, Craig. Yes, I think the only thing stopping Arroyo from jumping up any depth chart or like any draft charts right now is his injury history. And if the medical's clear, it feels like this kid's potential is pretty high. I liked it. I went in kind of thinking, I don't know if I'm going to like him. The injuries are kind of lame. I don't know how it's going to be, but I mean, small sample size. But I loved so much about his game. The thing that I really, really liked is his route running ability and the way he attacked defenders to create separation. I just feel like he was a threat, and he was always keeping those DBs on his heels and keeping them guessing. And I liked his blocking ability, and I know his technique, especially on that edge, had his issues, and his technique wasn't great, but I think he is a really strong run blocker. And we saw Miami use him as a pass blocker at times just because of his play strength, because he is so strong. But I love the potential of Arroyo. He is at the top of my list when we're talking about tight ends in the second round. I don't know if we're going to get into all that, but he's jumped to my tight end 3, and we've got like 5 more to cover here. I am a huge fan of Elijah Arroyo. I think watching his tape, seeing how much it seems like he's even progressed heading into the Senior Bowl and going against that competition. I just think like this kid, his best days are ahead of him. As long as he can stay healthy, this kid's got something. So I've got an 82 on him, and I think he's a real strong contender when they hit that second round. And it's not just me. It's I guess we hadn't talked about this, but we can break this here. Big fan the Chargers are of Elijah Arroyo as well. So a guy that they comp to a player that I will not mention on this podcast, but they have high hopes for this man.
Yeah, stay far away from that, please.
They really, really like Arroyo, and they just, same thing with the medicals. If the medical's clear, he's going to be high on their board if they end up going somewhere else in the first round. So with that, let's move on. And unfortunately, it's going to be my turn, and it's a guy that I am just so low on, and I'm sorry. A lot of people are very high on a guy I had high hopes for, and just really fell flat. But there are good things, and I will touch on that. He lined up everywhere, in line, slot, out wide, pretty nice route runner. He is fluid in and out of his breaks. A nice feel for finding those open spots in the zone too. He is a weapon up the seam. He tested pretty well, which was a little surprising to me because he does not look very fast on tape. It feels like he kind of builds up to his top speed, in my opinion. But as a blocker, it just feels like his form's a mess. A lot of these guys are. There were a lot of whiffs in the open field. The functional strength is an issue when he does latch on. He is, he's 6'5", but he's only 247. So another guy who's going to have to bulk up. He is light, but he went in the combine, and his play strength was a question. He decided to do the bench. He only did 15 reps, which is really low. And I know bench isn't a huge indicator of NFL success, but I mean, if you're going to go do it, you got to put up more than 15, Mr. Ferguson. I don't know what you're doing, but the problem I have is he can't catch the football. He drops the football so much. He went from a 5.3 drop rate when I watched 23, and then his drop rate almost doubled to a 10.3% drop rate this past season. He had only a 36% contested target last season. So in contested catches, he only caught 36% of them. Anytime you got a defender around Ferguson, there's an issue. And so have I been calling him Tyler Ferguson today, by the way? Have I been saying Terrance?
I didn't.
I swear I said
Terrance.
Tyler. Okay, good. All right.
I heard Terrance.
So with Terrance Ferguson, he does have the size. He's got the frame to be an NFL tight end. He tested well. I think it'll boost his stock. It'll be nice. He feels like a developmental project and he's going to have to pack on muscle, and the hands just are too worrisome for me to think about him in the first 3 rounds. So I have a 4th round grade on him. He's got a 65. He is a day 3 player to me, where a guy I've seen going in round 2. The hands are just frightening to me. They are frightening. So that's my take on Ferguson. I'm sure you guys like him better.
Not particularly, no.
Okay. Oh, good. Okay.
So Ferguson, he looks like a big wide receiver on tape. just the way he's built. I know he's 6'6". I think he weighed in at 230. Just not a very big or muscular guy for a tight end. I do think the athleticism shows on tape. Was really effective as a receiver underneath, especially in the screen game. At least that's how they like to get him the ball. I do think because of the speed and athleticism, I think there is some potential upside as a seam stretcher and in the middle of the field. He was okay as a move blocker, especially as a puller. I think he's probably best used as a tandem blocker. He has long arms and a pretty expansive catch radius. I mean, you covered it really. I mean, he doesn't offer much in pass protection. The hands aren't great. I don't think he's going to offer much. I'm being nice.
Okay, all right.
I don't think he's going to offer much after the catch. The route running is not good either. And he's pretty weak as a blocker. So, yeah, I'm out. I have a 67 on him.
All right, Craig.
Yeah. So,
gas him up.
T Ferg, man, I'm help you out a little bit. So
good.
I'm
okay,
not
thank
much
you.
higher than you guys though. So we're pretty much all in the same area. So T Ferg, man, like, so he has a build of like what you would want in a combo inline and split tight end. Jamie, I think he might have shown up, either he gained weight for the combine or what, I'm not sure, because at the combine he weighed in at like 247. He doesn't look exactly that big on film, but he does look like a bigger body guy to me, just like broader shoulders. He just has that look about him on tape to me. But he chews up a lot of ground in the open field after the catch because he just has like these really long galloping strides. And Garrett, you mentioned it. The 40 time, these guys train for this for months. So of course they show up, and if they're decent athletes, they can look better in 40 yards than they do on field. But the thing about Ferguson is when you're considering the fact that he's as good as he is in the open field, like as far as a runner, like you're not going to catch him because he has enough speed, but he's also not short area quick. So it's really weird. In the open field, you're going to have to, if he gets out in front of you, he's going to create some distance. It's going to take a while to walk him down because of those longer strides. But he also had like, I want to say 90th percentile, 20-yard split and 80th in 10 yards. So like you mentioned, he gets faster as he goes along. So it makes sense that you said that he has build-up speed because it showed up in the 40-yard dash. And also not a lot of tight ends, I think, perform the 40. So he ended up, I think he had like a 4.65, but against the field where guys weren't running super fast at that position, it kind of helped him out. So probably does elevate him as far as his draft stock is concerned. Even though he's not super agile in the open field, he does have a little bit of wiggle that helps with his yard after catch ability. He also understands like how to use his body to shield off defenders when settling down in zone windows, and he'll make himself like a really easy target to the QB. He's another guy that feels like he could develop into a key piece in the passing game because he's going to be a primary receiving weapon. Definitely going to be a move and flex Y guy. But he's not necessarily going to be one of those receivers that turn, or receiving tight ends that turns into a primary receiving option, like a la Travis Kelce or George Kittle. He's nowhere near in that league, but there's really, how many people are. He's another one who can stand and spend some extra time in the weight room also, if for nothing else, to improve just his grip strength, to stay attached, and also strengthen his base as a move blocker in the run game. And I was really disappointed at, besides just the hands overall, he's really weak at the catch point in contested catch situations. And with a frame like that, you have to be better in that way. So, Ferg, get it together, man. I gave you a 70. It was rough. So for me, late third round, probably an early fourth round guy. I had high hopes for you, specifically after seeing you at the combine. But when you turned on the film, it don't lie, man. You got to get better, specifically in the weight room. Because what'd you say, Garrett? 16 reps on the bench? 15?
15.
Yeah, that ain't going to fly at tight end, man.
When your play strength's in question and you go, I'm going to go bench, because a lot of guys don't, and you want to go bench, You can't do 15, man. Come on.
You know what I think happened? Because I think at the combine, they used to do the bench before they ran the 40s. And I think it's been flipped. Dude must have been feeling himself after he ran that 4.65 and then decided,
And
oh,
he's
yeah,
like,
I'm going to
I'm
go
a
ahead and
bench.
throw this 225 up. Nah. Instant stock drop.
Yep. Oh, man. This second round hype with Ferguson is beyond me.
Second round?
Bro, I've seen him in the second round in mocks. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. With another guy, which is
Wouldn't
coming up
recommend.
right now. Another guy, second round hype. Mason Taylor. Craig.
So we're all probably already tired of hearing about his pedigree, being the son of an NFL Hall of Famer and also current defensive end coach at the U, a one Mr. Jason Taylor. But the dude got dad's genes if we're talking about from a size standpoint, 6'5", 251 pounds. But he's also like football baby Huey in the way that he still has he's in the infancy stages of growing into his body. And while he's also still scratching the surface of his game, consider the fact that he won't even be 21 until after the draft. So I think a lot of people are looking at him because I've seen the knocks on him and it feels like it's due to where they see his game right now, not taking in consideration the dude is still super young. And you can just look at him. The size that he is, he doesn't really completely play to yet. And it looks like he's still trying to figure it out, even with some of the production that he has. Last year, he went for a solid 55 receptions, 546 yards, but he only had 2 TDs. He's only had 6 in 3 years. But keep in mind, the dude played third fiddle to the likes of Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr. So do with that what you will. Yeah. LSU's offense under Brian Kelly is blah. And just like it was at Notre Dame, I don't get why people love Brian Kelly so much. I'm definitely not a fan of his. You couldn't tell. But as far as what he brings to the table as a head coach in those offenses, just doesn't it doesn't move the needle for me. The hands, but this is about Mason Taylor. The hands are stellar. I mean, he had one drop in nearly 80 targets. His tape is littered with some of the most ridiculous athletic sideline toe dragging receptions that you see where he could be as his game continues to further develop and he really grows into his body. He high points the ball really well, and he won more of his fair share of contested receptions. As far as usage is concerned, he plays significant snaps as a big slot, but he also aligned as an H, a move Y, and inline as well. The route running is pretty good. I mean, he does a good job working to space and settling down in zones. He gets square to the QB on comeback routes, and he creates really clear passing lanes for them to throw into. The route tree, again, is decent with a blend of I saw outs, crossers, hitches, sticks, but he wasn't really utilizing the screen game very much. And I feel like it's because he's not the most agile athlete. The Chargers could care less, though, because look what they do with Will Dissly. I'd say he's an above average separator out of his breaks, specifically in out breaking routes. And the kid's tough. Garrett Nussmeier, look. I don't understand what this dude is doing, but it feels to me like he's majoring in hospital balls at LSU because he set his wide receivers and specifically Taylor. He put him in some of the worst positions with ball placement. He threw Taylor into some hellacious shots, and the dude was just pop up, shrug it off, and keep right on going. So he's built for to take shots in the NFL. I don't recommend continuously putting him in those situations because you want to have an extensive career. You want to see that talent continue to develop instead of having him willed off or on a stretcher. But Garrett Nussmeier feels like he feels like it was his mission to end that man's career. Just do better, Garrett. Not you, Garrett.
Hey.
You're doing just fine.
Hey.
Anywho, sorry, man. I don't get to decide who you share names with. I've seen some questionable Garretts, by the way. You might be at the top of the list as far as just good human beings in general. I know some pretty scummy Garretts, and this one,
You're kidding,
man.
There's barely any Garretts, and they're scummy.
No, I know 3.
Oh.
In addition to you, and the other 3 are complete scumbags.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway,
is Myles Garrett one of them?
What was the quarterback from Pittsburgh? Who you beat with the helmet?
Rudolph? Mason Rudolph?
Yeah, was that Mason Rudolph? Yeah.
All right, fine.
Different conversation. So it's not all good, of course. There's some bad.
All right, fine. Okay.
Yeah. The blocking just isn't good right now. And a lot of it's due to like a combination of the lack of functional strength, which, hey, stop me if you've heard this, in this podcast already. But the technique is also poor. And it's like I mentioned earlier, he's still growing into his frame, and the blocking is where it becomes painfully obvious. The other area is going to be after the catch. There just isn't going to be much there unless he has space to work with, because he just doesn't have the play strength to consistently break tackles, nor is he overly nimble. Again, I like Mason Taylor more than I think a lot of people do. Well, depending on, what circles you pay attention to where these tight ends are graded, because I've seen some guys really bag on him specifically. And again, I think they're looking at him as who he is right now, as opposed to what he can potentially be specifically if he gets in a really good strength and conditioning program, which Chargers definitely have. And I think you'll see his game elevate at the next level. He's one of those players that I think is going to be a much better professional than he was in college. And for that reason, right now, I've got him with a early third round grading, late second round grade with a 79 overall, even though I've seen him talked up in high second round. So I wouldn't be surprised if he goes there.
Yeah, I like where your head's at, Craig. I like Mason Taylor too. I think you have to look at the projection and where he's going to wind up. He wasn't used in a very creative way in college, but he made plays. He does create some separation. He has really good hands. The catch radius is ridiculous. I mean, he's catching balls off the ground, over his head, wide right, wide left. I mean, it's crazy. He's got such strong hands and long arms, which will really help him in the seams in the middle of the field there. Also, you can see flashes of really good body control. He does a good job of locating and adjusting the ball in the air. And you saw Craig mention the toe drags along the sidelines. He just has a good feel for where he is on the field and how to keep his feet in bounds and make the play. He's going to be a bit of a project just because he's so raw. The inline blocking, not great. He has a tendency to be very grabby. His hands tend to land high and outside, grab the outside of the shoulder pads, which is going to draw some penalties at the next level. Again, needs to get stronger. But I think if you're looking for somebody who has the potential to be a strong route runner, run a diverse route tree with professional routes and make plays for you, not just move the chains, but get you chunk plays and be a weapon in the red zone, I think Mason Taylor's that guy if he lands in the right program and the right offense. And kind of like we talked about with Fannin, I just feel like he's one of those guys that the Chargers could scheme up and find ways to get him open and maybe hide the blocking a little bit. I have an 80 on him. So late second, early third round pick. He's a guy that if the Chargers don't get a tight end in the first round, maybe you think about taking him in the second round or trading back into the early third to get him. So I think he's a guy that they'd be really happy with if they got him. There's a lot of potential there, a lot to work with. It's kind of like an unmolded block of clay right now. And I think Roman would do a really good job of finding ways to maximize what he does well now and expand on those things.
Yeah. I mean, his best football is in front of him, and his quarterback did him no favors. But he is just seriously a threat from every part of the field with an amazing catch radius and some pretty good route running chops. You can see the athletic ability. You guys, we talked about it through multiple tight ends now. The blocking's an issue. The play strength stinks, but bulk them up and you got something here. The Senior Bowl was real nice. I feel like he can be an effective early on as a move tight end, but there's a high ceiling here if developed right. And if you're looking for somebody who's got a nice base foundation as a tight end, Mason Taylor's your guy. And a guy that you can develop to be a better tight end in the future, Mason Taylor's your guy. And when you're looking at guys, if you're passing on a tight end in the first round, or they're not available there in the first round, they get taken before the Chargers pick at 22, and the top guys are gone, then you're starting to think about a guy like Mason Taylor. And I think you've got a pretty good, nice combo if you end up going edge or whatever, wide receiver, whatever you do in the first round. Still picking up Mason Taylor is a nice little 1-2 punch when you get to a guy like Arroyo in my mind, or a Mason Taylor.
Garrett Nussmeier is a domestic terrorist.
God, you keep saying my name. I keep jumping.
Sorry.
What's your grade on Taylor?
Mine is exactly yours, Jamie. 80. We are all in line. 80, 80, 79. We're right there on where we would take Mason Taylor, which is about where the Chargers pick. So I would not bat an eye if they took Mason Taylor in the second round. All right. Next up, we're getting to some of the ones that everybody's been talking about. The first one here, of course, Colston Loveland. Jamie?
All right. Loveland
Here comes the fun stuff.
Yep. Loveland was a very, very fun watch. Really enjoyed watching him. So with Loveland, you've got a tight end who's 6'6", 250. He's another flex Y tight end. I think you could maybe even consider him something of a hybrid tight end. Loveland is a significant contributor in several roles as a blocker. He had success blocking inline, in the backfield, pulling, climbing, trapping, kicking out. He did it all, and he rarely missed a block. He was effective both in pass protection and as a run blocker. I think he's a much better blocker than what he's been given credit for from the national media as we get into the draft cycle. I thought Loveland took really intelligent angles to the second level, and he created consistent movement against both defensive linemen and linebackers in the running game. Does a good job of using strong hands to latch on and keeping his feet moving to create movement as a blocker. Loveland, in my opinion, I would say he's the best route runner in this tight end class. He runs a full polished route tree, and he's able to make plays at all three levels of the defense. Loveland has an advanced understanding of soft spots in the zone, does a really good job of settling and giving his quarterback a big target, plucks the ball out of the air, another natural hands catcher, has a ridiculously wide catch radius. If you can get it anywhere near him or even remotely near him, he's probably going to catch it. Loveland is quick to elevate over defenders for jump ball opportunities. He presents mismatches for linebackers and safeties and even some corners. As a receiver, he aligned in line, in the slot, out wide. I think he even had some catches out of the backfield. So he's another guy who can move around and hide and help scheme open, although he's a good enough route runner that he doesn't necessarily need to be schemed open that often. He's an absolute nightmare between the hash marks. And I think he's a guy who, with better quarterback play and a better offensive coordinator, because the quarterback play at Michigan was fucking terrible last year. I think he's a guy who's going to be a force multiplier in the red zone. He's going to make a lot of plays with that frame and that reach and the leaping ability in the red zone. Weaknesses for Loveland, and admittedly, we're nitpicking a little bit here. I think there was some evidence of hip tightness in his route running and open field opportunities. The feet can sometimes get a little heavy and clunky at the top of his routes. Loveland's functional strength deficits can show up on contested catches. There are times where defenders can play through him and knock the ball out of his hands. I think there are times when he can do a better job of cutting off his route and working back to the football to help his quarterback. He's definitely going to need to add bulk to block NFL defensive linemen. And he's going to benefit from learning how to vary the pacing of his routes. But overall, Loveland is a guy who's going to step into the NFL. He's going to be highly productive as a receiver and contribute as a blocker. I have a first-round grade on Loveland. I have a 91. He's a guy who, I mean, he's a priority for me at 22. If he's there, they'd be insane not to take him. He just transforms this offense almost overnight. So Loveland's super fun watch. There is not much he doesn't do well, and you kind of had to nitpick a little bit in some cases to find things that are quote unquote wrong with him. But man, fun watch.
Yeah, Loveland was so fun. And I think what also isn't really being talked about is how much better of a NFL football player he's going to be than the guy you saw last year at Michigan. Like he is going to far exceed the player he was at Michigan to the player he's going to be in the NFL. Michigan ran the ball a lot, and as Jamie put so colorfully, the quarterback play was spotty. so while
I don't think that's what I said.
I'm paraphrasing. Some might have had the reservations about Loveland, like I did during the deep dive. You see the dip in yards this season, but the more you watch Loveland, it is making the most out of limited opportunities. If you drop him in, and we're going to talk about Warren and his role at Penn State, you give him that kind of bulk targets like Warren got at Penn State. And I mean, this kid's putting up $150. I mean, you're seeing 150 catches, and you're seeing crazy type numbers. I mean, there is so much to like about his game. I know it's a hypothetical, but in an NFL offense, competent offense, Loveland is going to contribute as a tight end one early on, and there should be no reservations about putting him and dropping him as your starting tight end in an offense, because he is just a natural field stretching playmaker. And because the play was so bad, it feels like he was just limited with opportunities. I have an 88 on him. He is so close to first round grade, and a guy that I have as the highest guy as a priority for the Chargers at 22. He is tight end one for me. I absolutely love Loveland.
Love Loveland. Yeah. So like you mentioned, Garrett, no, that's all right. Bars. So for sure, man. He's definitely, you can see it. He's ideally what I think the Chargers would want. Of course, there's the Harbaugh connection there and what he would mean to this offense. But let's be honest, man. Loveland made lemonade out of toilet water in Michigan last year. I like the flexibility that he offers to play on the perimeter, because he's such a smooth athlete, and he can win not just because of his size, but because he can absolutely route defenders up. I'm not saying he could play like heavy snaps at X, but you could absolutely deploy him in like certain sets where I can see it now. You could motion him out into mismatch one-on-one opportunities on the perimeter. He's just going to eat all day long, and then he's going to open up so many other things offensively. And because he'd be such a weapon in the passing game, think about what that would do for you in the running game. The talk of him being a liability in the blocking as a blocker, specifically in the run game, is overstated. To be honest with you, I think he has really good technique. It's just another one of those functional strength situations, which I feel like will be resolved because he understands what it takes to get bigger and stronger. He's been in the program that he would be walking into if he was actually drafted by the Chargers. It's just a hand in glove fit. He just needs to continue developing that functional strength. I have no complaints about him in general, just because, like Garrett mentioned, if you put him, not even if you change his body type, if you just gave him competent quarterback play, I think he'd be the unquestioned tight end one in his class. And while I'm sure we'll probably get some flack because everyone loves Tyler Warren because he's a fantastic player, I'm just going to go ahead and spill the beans right now. Colston Loveland is my tight end one. He's got a 91 grade overall, first round for me. And he's the dream when we're talking about tight ends. For me, I know a lot of people prefer Tyler Warren, different play styles, but overall, what I think would be the best fit for the Chargers and who would best utilize him and what he could do to open up the offense, specifically the running game, this would be my guy.
Yeah. And I think we could put that blocking, not a good blocker thing just aside.
It's bullshit.
Yeah. Yep. And I don't know why it keeps following him along, but it ain't the truth. All right, so since we segued into him, let's talk about him. Tyler Warren, our last tight end here to cover before we get into some sleepers here. He's got excellent size for the position, and one of those college athletes that added something to his tool belt every single season. When you watch 24 tape, 23 tape, and then the limited ability in 22, there was a spike in 23, and then he exploded this past season. He has great hands to fight off defenders. He's also very good at the catch point. He was very good in contested catches when they threw him the ball. When he's got the ball in his hands, Warren is a tough runner who isn't real, blow by you type fast, but enough of a threat. He was a former quarterback, of course, and Penn State used him as the QB out of the Wildcat with success. He was a threat with his legs. He runs real stiff, so there isn't really like that yak ability, but there is enough if he's got some blockers in front of him to collect some extra yards. He's also a real tough blocker near the line of scrimmage, but he struggles when he's maintaining those blocks from time to time. So it feels like he can get his hands on guys, but then at times, he only has a couple seconds before, a defender breaks free. He is also pretty new to the position. It's only 4 seasons as a tight end. And, I think the route running could use a little bit of refinement. But just as an aside here, the real ugly part of this kind of eval is the constant Taysom Hill comps that you're getting with Tyler Warren. And I gotta stop it. I hate it. He was a quarterback turned tight end, but Taysom Hill did not become a tight end until he hit the NFL. Warren has had 2 straight seasons of college production at the tight end level. He's proved last year that he could be a number 1 in the offense. He's got a wide receiver 1 type volume last year. He had 104 catches, over 1,200 yards. It's garbage. It sucks. It's lazy, and I hate it. Get rid of it. He is not Taysom Hill, and I don't want to hear it. I think he is a tight end 1 in an offense. You can drop him in. He with a creative play caller, you could add some of that passer if you wanted to, but add his size, his body control, his catch radius. He will be a red zone weapon. He's got enough straight line speed to get separation with the ball in his hands. His blocking, route running, I feel like are a little bit of work in progress, but this is a player who is ascending. I've got Tyler Warren as kind of a flex tight end early in his career, eventually working out as an inline tight end. But this is a guy that's got an 87 for me, and a guy I would not, again, bat an eye if Loveland is not there at 22. I prefer Loveland. Warren is a nice consolation price, not even a consolation price, a nice option too if they were able to get him and Loveland was not there at 22. If they pick Warren over Loveland, which I don't know that that's going to be the case, but if they were to pick Warren over Loveland, then it's fine. I am totally okay with it because this is a good player.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot negative about Tyler Warren to find. He's a really good player. He's my tight end 1. I have a 92 on him, so he and Loveland are neck and neck. I think what separates him from Loveland a little bit is the blocking. While Loveland is a good blocker, I think Warren is a little bit more physical and a little bit more technically sound as a blocker. Technique is a little bit better. They both need to get stronger, but that's the entire class at tight end right now. That's just a copy and paste for everybody. He is highly productive at all 3 levels of the field. I love him up the seams. Another guy who understands the defenses and how to find soft spots in the zone. And he runs a pretty full route tree. And he's really good after the catch. Some things that I noticed, and Garrett mentioned them. I think he can be better at fighting through contact early in routes. The play strength isn't great, so when he gets pressed, he can kind of stick to defenders a little bit, and he can be easily rerouted at the top of his route. There were times where I felt like if he wasn't the number 1 or number 2 read on a play, he might take a play off and kind of coast through the play. The urgency wasn't there. Every play to play. And Garrett mentioned, I think the route running needs to be refined, but he hasn't been playing tight end for that long, so that's to be expected. He's not at the level of a Colston Loveland in terms of route running, but I still think he's a fairly polished route running considering where he is in his development. I have a 92 on Warren.
All right, Craig.
Yeah, man. So we know who the top 2 guys are in this class, so it's no secret about it. As far as Warren is concerned, I just love what he offers after the catch. Just a man amongst boys. When he transitions from a receiver to a ball carrier, I think he ranked in the top 3 in forced missed tackles. And that wasn't due to like Allen Iverson crossing cats up in the open field either. He has like a default setting to run through your face. So that's typically what he opts to. He's going to be the reason why plays that look dead in the water will almost always really have a chance just because of his strength at the catch point. There aren't going to be very many second or third level defenders that are going to be able to like out muscle him for position or possession of the pill, just in general. There's nothing that I would say that I would critique about him, or overly critique about him, except for the fact that Jamie kind of alluded to this a bit. He gets muscled in one-on-one when we're talking about guys who kind of try to press him up, not necessarily because he doesn't have the strength. I think it's footwork and balance. He has a tendency to rock back on his heels before he gets into his route. So not really a false step, but just his momentum isn't moving forward all of the time. And essentially it's almost like he either expects to get hands in his chest, so he tries to drift back in order to avoid it if they're close and, in position to maybe press him up. But even when there was off coverage against him, he still did it. It's like a quirk in his game that he's got to get corrected, just because the NFL is a timing game and because you aren't the fastest of receivers, or tight ends, should I say. Like, that little split second matters when you're talking about route running. Again, and every second in the NFL matters, every inch counts. So where you can get away with that in college, that's the difference between maybe a completion or potentially an interception if a DB can break on the ball in time. But I like Warren's game overall. I still prefer Loveland's game. I love, where Warren plays just that Rob Gronkowski style of football, just very, very physical, bigger body guy that is going to make it really difficult for you to win against him. Again, when we're talking about contested catch situations, what he will be in the NFL when you're talking about ISOing him up, he probably won't win just on route running alone. He'll probably be more so of a guy that wins because of physicality. So just be able to box guys out and just rough them up to make receptions. So again, another first round grade for me. He's got a 90 overall, so just a point below Coast and Loveland. But these are clearly your top two guys, and I don't think you could go wrong with either one.
And I think that's important to note, because I've got them separated by a point. Jamie, you got them separated by a point too, don't you? Just the opposite way. Mm-hmm. And Craig's got them separated by a point. So it feels like this is a 1A, 1B type scenario where either way they go Tyler Warren over Loveland. I mean, I'm not crying about it. I want either of these tight ends. Give me one of these, Loveland or Warren at 22. I am hoping, praying that teams are going after interior offensive linemen, because I want them to go early in this draft, and they're passing on these two boys, and they drop down, and Chargers have their pick of Loveland and or Warren, because I want teams, either of these tight ends.
I hope someone gets QB desperate and decides, and someone falls. Say Shedeur Sanders, say if he falls out of the top 5 and he just drops a bit, well, hell, I don't know what's going to happen now that the Saints clearly need a quarterback after the news that just came out today. Thanks, Derek Carr. You're still screwing up.
Your family's never going to catch a break with that.
What are you even doing right now, man? You're not playing real football.
Retire.
There's a story there. He did something dumb. I'm certain of it. But anyway, if there is a drop and teams feel like they want to trade up, someone goes and gets Shedeur, and then there's all the Jackson Dart talk. The Chargers could find themselves with someone falling in their lap that shouldn't be there. I still don't suspect that it's going to happen. I think both of these guys go for the board before the Chargers get their pick at 22, but a man can hope.
Yep. Yeah, I want either one. And just like the three of us, where we've got them not much separation, it's the same in the Chargers draft room. And the ties to Harbaugh probably wins that battle, but there are multiple scouts who have Warren as tight end 1 and multiple scouts in that room that have Loveland as tight end 1. And it's because it's just, which one do you prefer? Mm-hmm. You've got two good tight ends. Which one do you prefer? All right, so let's move off of this and let's move on to our sleepers. Craig, I guess we can kind of fire through this. We're almost an hour and a half in here. Craig, who is your sleeper?
My guy is a one Mr. Jalen Conyers out of Texas. Can't talk. Texas Tech. Tongue twister.
You don't get him, Jamie. You got him. He botched the name. It's yours, Jamie.
Nope. Doesn't matter. Way too late for that. We've already established it.
I know. We did it in the chat.
6'3.5", 260 pounds. Now, He started out by having like a cup of coffee at Oklahoma. It was barely there. I don't know if he played a single snap at Oklahoma, honestly. But then he moved over to Arizona State before spending his senior year in Texas Tech in Lubbock. So Jamie is familiar with his game. And dude is just worth the price of admission. I'm talking about just a very, very fun watch. He looks like the result of a Dragon Ball Z fusion dance between Harold Fannin and like the Timu edition of Tyler Warren. So if you can imagine that, you turn the tape on and you see him successfully playing Wildcat quarterback. I mean, he did play some QB in high school, and he's a dual threat in that role. So he's actually got the ability to throw a TD out of that formation. He did that actually on tape. He can line up in line as a traditional tight end, a split Y, an H-back. He also aligned as the point or number one in bunch sets, so essentially an X. And the dude just looks natural in every spot. I saw some pretty solid hands. He only had 2 drops on over 40 targets last year at Tech. And dude's also very good in contested catch situations, mostly due to like that exceptional body control. And for his build, it doesn't match. Like the athleticism doesn't match the way that he looks. So I think he catches guys just by surprise in general. You can watch film on it. It just doesn't make sense. He seems like one of those players like you think you get a beat on him by the build, but then you get on the field and he just outplays what you would expect. I think he has great body control for a guy who plays at 260 pounds. And he made some impressive above the rim grabs on defensive backs. And the contact balance is very good also. Like Fannin, he may have run like a paltry 4.7 plus at Indy, but he plays faster. And you see it when he's in the open field and when he's asked to attack vertically. But he can absolutely move. As a run blocker, I say he's above average and improving because he understands leverage and like he knows that you have to really bring your hips when you're attacking a defender. And I see him do it in virtually almost all of his run reps. You can see that he's very, very conscious about it, and he knows where his power comes from, is why he's able to get guys off of their base, and really move guys down the line of scrimmage as a blocker, specifically also as a backside blocker. He gets it. It wasn't perfect to start, but as I continue to watch games, like by the time I got to game 5, game 6, it was all there for me. Now, the bad is that the production hasn't matched the talent. Like while his targets and receptions have stayed mostly consistent over the last few seasons, the yardage did dip. And it feels like he should have been more of an offensive staple, but it just didn't materialize to the degree that it should have for a player with that skill set. And he's also a little older. He'll be 24 when the season starts, so he'll have to get fast tracked for development. You don't have that time to really do what you could do with, say, like a Mason Taylor. If he's going to be anything at all, it's probably going to have to be from day one, get him in, get him situated, and he's got to be ready to roll. As a route runner, I think there's significant work to do. He's fine as long as we're talking about like base level routes, like crossers, speed outs, and goes, things that don't involve like sharp cuts and breaks, because he has a tendency to round off breaks, say like for instance on curls and comebacks, and he doesn't throttle down or sink his hips well enough on digs and outs. And one of the major things, and Jamie, you might be able to speak to this a little bit, there have been questions about like his stamina and how he carries weight. So he'd need to be inserted into like a really good strength and conditioning program. Anybody know of one? And one of the worst things, in my opinion, you can have in question as an athlete is like your want to and dedication to your craft. So he's going to have to be one of those guys who shows up every day to dispel those rumors. He can leave no question. So for me, I like Conyers, man. Like when you're talking about a draft where you have strength in positions where you can double up, tight end being one where you could definitely get a day one starter and then another developmental guy or someone that might even be able to contribute year one. Jalen Conyers feels like the perfect complement to anyone else you pick ahead of him. And I would love that tight end room for the Chargers, especially like I feel like Jalen Conyers should be a Charger. Somehow, some way it's got to work out that way. If it does, I'll be elated. If not, good on anybody who gets him, as long as it's not the Chiefs.
Anyway. I was just going to say, if not, he went to the Chiefs.
Yeah. But I gave him a 71. So late 3rd round grade, maybe early 4th. But if scouts are watching and they spent way more time on tape than I did, and they see what this guy could be, if they can get him to round in the form, keep him in shape, you might have a player here.
Yeah, I'm a Conyers fan. He's a guy who was a good weapon for ASU in the red zone when he was there. They actually basically built their offense inside the 25 or 20 yard line around him when he was there. You're talking having him throw the ball, run the ball, catch the ball. He did everything. So he's a guy who I think could develop into something in the right system. Another guy that Greg Roman would probably have fun scheming up plays for.
All right, who's yours, Jamie?
Mine is, I went a little outside the box. So my sleeper is Syracuse tight end Oronde Gadsden II. He's 6'5", 245. What are you laughing at there, Craig?
No, just the bloodlines, the former NFL players with kids that are popping up in your drafts. I'm feeling really old.
Yeah, me too. He's a flex tight end. Really, Gadsden was a receiver when he was recruited, a big X receiver, and he got hurt after his freshman year and was converted to a tight end. And he had 2 seasons at Syracuse with almost 1,000 yards and was a big time weapon for them in the red zone. The strengths for him, he's still built like a wide receiver, but he's got a very long, lean, athletic frame. He has very long arms, and you can see the potential for him being kind of a red zone option with an expansive catch radius. He's a big time, big play machine, running seam routes, deep overs, and crossers. Got a really nice second gear in the open field for Yak. Obviously, his dad, Oronde, played in the NFL, so he's got NFL bloodlines, and he was very productive out of the slot. Now, the weaknesses for him, I hate to question this about a professional athlete. It's something I usually try to avoid. I do think there might be some toughness concerns with him, and maybe that's something that they could work out of him, kind of like they did with QJ or are trying to do with QJ. He runs a very limited, unpolished route tree. He is not as good as you would expect in contested catch situations. He will frequently allow corners and safeties to play through his frame on contested catches. You can also see him alligator arm balls if he thinks he's going to get hit. He can be easily rerouted by the slightest amount of contact as a route runner. And he's a terrible blocker. And the hands are up and down again because he's not very good in contested catch situations and because he will almost recoil when catching the ball in traffic. So there you can see a playmaker there with Gadsden. You can see a guy who could definitely stretch the field, can definitely be a weapon deep over the middle, and probably in the red zone as well. He's not going to be able to be on the field as a blocker early on. You'd have to be really comfortable with his desire to continue playing football and his toughness. And you're going to have to basically like turn him into a football player, turn him into a professional. I have a 63 on him. So late 4th round, early 5th round pick. He's a developmental project. He's a guy you might look at if you're double dipping and you get one of the guys that you want in the 1st or 2nd round, then maybe you take him in say the 5th round. And just see what you can mold him into being. Not somebody that's probably going to see the field year 1 unless it's on special teams.
All right. So just like you guys are doing, kind of another addition if you wanted to add a second tight end through the draft. Though I watched Conyers, and I think there was something there too. I didn't happen to watch yours, Jamie. But my guy is just, I feel like somebody that probably needs a little bit more love when you're talking about the rest of these guys is Jake Brenningstool from Clemson. I enjoyed the tempo he brought to his route running. He can separate pretty easy with his feet. He can accelerate off the line real fast, contest the seams vertically or find the soft spot in his zone. He is tall at 6'5", really long arms. He was a red zone threat anytime Clemson got down there. He's also got a pretty fiery attitude, especially when it's in the run game. He wants to get after it in the run game. The issue is he is 241. Get him matched up against a slot defender. He can do some work, put him near the line of scrimmage. He's going to get absolutely washed. Get Jake Brenningstool to bulk up because he's not really a high-end athlete. Build up on top of that top speed, and you could pack on some muscle. I think it's just going to elevate his game. A guy that could really help out his game by bulking up And if a guy like Ben Herbert want to do that, I think you got something there. He is a solid route runner, uses his size to his advantage. Letting him be a flex outside option or in the slot is his best bet right now. Probably a tight end 2 ceiling, but add some more muscle. I don't know. Maybe you got a little bit more. I think there's some possibility here down the road just because there's a lot to build off with Burning Stool. And like it seems like all of these tight ends we've been talking about, let them bulk up and you've got a player. Jamie, it feels like we lost you. I knew we were going to lose him. I knew it. He was tinkering around like a mad scientist over there.
I saw the look on his face. It's like,
yeah. What's going on?
Impending doom.
And then also like it felt like I was trying to talk over all the tinkering he was doing back there. But Burning Stool for me is a guy that got like a 75. So it feels like, and Jamie might come back or not, but we're kind of wrapping up here anyway. So you and I both have Colston Loveland as our tight end 1s. We've got Tyler Warren as our tight end 2s. Is Arroyo 3 for you?
Yes.
Okay, so we're all right. Is Mason Taylor 4 for you?
Correct.
All right. After that, is it Fannin?
Yes.
Man, we got the same 5. All right, cool. So then that means who's 6?
Gunnar Helm.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, that's where we differ. We are different there, sir.
Yeah. Also, I tried to, like I said before, I shot him a little bell because I'm not a fan, but I wanted to give him credit for what he put on tape just this last season and the numbers. Again, I still feel like they were a product of the way that Texas utilized him in the offense. They definitely schemed him open for touches. That dude's not going to be able to get a whole lot going on his own at the next level. I don't see it. I don't see the athleticism. I don't see the creativity, the separation ability. If I'm wrong, then great, but just not.
Yeah. So Jamie, while you were gone, Jamie and I, or Craig and I, have the exact same top 5. It's Colston Loveland, Tyler Warren, Elijah Arroyo, Mason Taylor, and then Harold Fannin Jr. What's your top 5? Oh, you're muted. We do not hear you at all. And maybe your mic isn't working at all. Oh,
Can you hear me now?
yes,
Yep.
yes.
All right. Yeah.
Top
My
5.
mic just like shut down on me, so I had to leave and come back in.
Yeah, we heard you tinkering. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Top
My
5.
top 5 are, hang on one second.
Tyler Warren, Colston Loveland. We do know that.
Tyler Warren, Colston Loveland, Elijah Arroyo,
Let's
Mason
go.
Taylor, and Fannin.
We all have let's go.
Jamie, you thought you were going to like Taylor better than Arroyo initially, right?
Yeah.
I did. Yep.
Yeah. Same here. Same exact thing. I wasn't all that high on Arroyo before the watch, and I thought I was going to really like Mason Taylor. It's the same thing. Yeah. Okay.
I ain't gonna lie, man. I thought we were going to get to this show back when we were like kind of plotting out. And I didn't know what we were going to be doing at that point, whether or not we'd be live and all doing it at the same time. But I was just hoping and praying nobody recognized Elijah Arroyo until we got to this point, because that was going to be the ace up my sleeve. So whatever.
Here we go. But so you got your lightning round podcast top 5 tight end not on purpose. It just happened to fall that way.
Organic.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right,
As we've said before, we don't talk about this stuff. We don't share our rankings before we go to the show. So
No.
we all do our own independent watch and our independent work. And oddly enough, we almost always end up agreeing on pretty much everybody. There's probably more variation this year than there have been in years past.
Yeah. All right. So wide receivers next week, next Friday, same time. We're going to go over the wide receivers. Thank you everybody for watching. We appreciate you guys, and we will see you next time.
Thanks, everybody.
Salute.
Salute.